Detective Comics
1083.
1083 indeed. I didn't have that tab up, so thank you for giving me the
You're
number.
welcome.
Ram V writing with Riccardo Federici and Stefano Raphael on art. And I could have swore there was a third artist, but League of Comic Geeks was not telling me about a third artist, and the cover didn't have a third artist on it. So
Yeah.
my guess is that we had a different colorist maybe on one of the artists, because the last section looked different. There's a difference at the end, but we'll get to that. So this kind of wraps up Bruce Wayne's sort of desert trip, his in his mind where he's fighting his inner demons stuff. That comes to an end, and he's back in Gotham by the end of this issue. What did you think of the wrap up to this segment of the run?
So I liked it a lot. It kind of reestablished Ramby's take on Batman. And so it kind of gets him beyond the I need to be there for Gotham. And it is, at the end of the day, I'm doing this because it's the right thing to do. And I think that really pushes Batman forward, because, we always get all these stories about him doing this job so no one ends up like him. And that gets so tired. So the fact that Ram V took this, had Bruce go on this inner turmoil journey to get to a place where now he's, kind of where Batman should be. I really like that.
Yeah. I mean, I like a lot of the beats that are in here. He's talking to these other characters in this fake version of Gotham, and ultimately is, even when he's faced with this evil version of Batman and he's literally handed a stick of dynamite, he refuses to use it against the evil Batman, which makes the Dr. Hurt, who I think is just the Dr. Hurt in his head, it's not actual Dr. Hurt, is disappointed in him, and it keeps coming back to this idea of him letting the anger, the demon take over and sort of give in to either the thing that Dr. Hurt's always wanted him to be, or the asthma, which is also fighting for control. And I think, the build up to him coming out of this, I do think the art change worked quite well, actually, because the art change told me that he came out of it. It was actually the biggest sign in the page that something had changed. And obviously there's many comics where they have to get a second artist to finish some pages, and it's just awkward, and it's not actually for a creative reason. This felt like, no, the art is telling me that we're outside of his head now, and we're in the real desert, and he's, walking up to deal with Tally and Pink Flamingo, who are having a spat.
Yeah, really the only thing that transfers over from the dream world to the real world is that his cape is kind of swirling around like it has a mind of its own, right? And then mostly that's to cover what I assume is naked Bruce, right?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I don't think it's literally doing that. I think that's just the artist's, interpretation of it, kind of thing.
Right, and so I do like that. So when you go from the Federici page, there on the bottom as he's fighting Barbados, and the cape is just kind of taking up that whole lower panel, and then when you turn the page, and now it's, it almost looks like Spawn's cape, where it has all these tendrils and stuff coming off of it. It's a really effective way to transition the art.
And I'm going to assume as well that when Barbados is trying to talk him into sort of giving in to the more demonic Batman side of himself, I assume you were a big fan of the fact that he straight up brings up his belief in Superman as one of the inspirations for never sort of giving in.
Yeah, it was along the same lines in last week's Wonder Woman, where they view each other as that triangle, where the two see the third one similarly. And this is, that enforces Bruce's thought of you can be this all-powerful person but still be rooted in your humanity. And I like that he uses the alien as the reminder of what it means to be human. Yeah,
but he talks about how he understands him better than his own demons. Like, Superman understands Batman in a way that even Barbatos inside his own head doesn't seem to understand him. So, because Batman and Superman do both have that kind of the ideals that they won't break from. Superman will never, snap and kill someone, and neither will Batman. And despite all the other differences they might have, that fundamental's always there. So it is nice for him to bring up that friendship and bring up someone he knows that as the close up on the mouth as well. And he's almost smiling, through his teeth as he says it, which I really like. So no, it's all just a fun bit. It's basically building up to one of these classic Batman moments that a lot of Batman comics get to have. Whether it's a No Man's Land, whether it's when he came back after RIP, it's the when Batman gets back to Gotham moment. Hell, even Dark Knight Rises, the movie example had it, which is how do you treat that big moment? And you know, we actually go back to, obviously we've been having this running plot in Gotham with Montoya's question. In this issue, it's about her sort of trying to prove that Siobhan is behind the murder of those other detectives, but she's going to need like really concrete proof to convince everyone because they all want to believe the lies. The way she puts it is that if you take away the symptoms that something was wrong, and Batman effectively was a symptom that something wasn't right in Gotham, it's like there was never anything wrong in the first place, so it's really easy for a lot of people to buy into the lie. And when she's trying to get Gordon on board to like help expose and use the evidence she's found, this firing squad, this kill squad from Siobhan shows up and is ready to kill them. So the final page is the big like Batman crash landing on the cars, all the bats are swarming. He's back in Gotham and he's ready to brood and do dark things.
I liked what they were doing here too with the whole idea of that the question was the person that was able to poke through because of the way that Montoya and the questions even before her look at what's wrong in society, and they're kind of they're the ones asking the question. So she was kind of onto the things like what is exactly not right, and when she starts peeling back all those layers, she's like, well, I can't be the one to bring this up because people aren't going to believe me, you know, this faceless, you know, person, and I can't exactly, you know, this wasn't exactly legally obtained information, so it has to come from somewhere else. So I do like all of that, you know, the question has to remain in the shadows, and that's how you get Gordon back in.
Yeah, I mean, looking at those final pages in the desert before the last scene, after it switches from Federici, I guess it's just Raphael doing those pages to indicate that in this storyline, Raphael's been doing the real world, which has primarily been Gotham. And it's just, it caught me off guard because we're in the desert with that art style. It does look a little bit different from the Gotham stuff, but it definitely looks a lot more like Raphael than it does Federici, that's for sure. Yeah,
the lines are a bit heavier than they are in the Gotham stuff.
Yeah.
So, but maybe that's just to you know, to indicate the harshness of the desert or whatever, you know.
Yeah, that could just
be personal styling.
That could be Raphael just sort of like intentionally drawing differently for a very different scene because it's not in Gotham and it's not the same type of scene. But
yeah, because they don't have an inker listed, so he's definitely inking his own stuff. It would seem.
Makes sense.
So that would make sense to draw emphasis there.
Yeah.
But I really do love how that, you know, when he overtakes the flamingo, and it just looks like this shroud of blackness blotting out the sun. You know, it's very what's the word? The idea of Batman personified right here in the desert.
I also really like how all the stuff in Gotham is very strictly pretty much 9-panel grid stuff, aside from like the big splash page at the end. It really sells this idea of the real world's all structured and ordered, but all the stuff in his head that he's fighting in the desert's all a lot more, you know, misshapen. It's a lot more of a weird order, well, not weird order, but like weird box sizes and things like that.
Yeah, there's a lot more to play with there, right?
Yeah.
A lot more free flowing. That page too. It's all the blue on it. It's after he won't blow up the evil Super Batman. You know, the big hulking guy, and just all that blue and how the panels bleed into each other. Like they have like these little smoke-like trails coming off of them, and the way that the Asmer shows up in the shadows.
Oh yeah, the Asmer, like sort of the monster coming through the smoke or the mist or whatever it is towards them, does look fantastic on that page.
Yeah,
but I mean, Federici's just, you know, just gorgeous art.
Very much. But it's how it gives way to like smoke from one panel to the other. So even like the top right panel, if you follow the smoke tendrils, they evenly down to one of the lower ones. And yeah, it's just kind of, it's not a mess though, because I don't want to say it's like this mess of a thing, because it's all very easy to read, but it is a little bit more free flowing than the full structure of the Gotham stuff.
Yeah, it's just got a less conventional layout to give it this more like erratic, dreamlike kind of quality.
Erratic. That's more of the word.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that. I also just a small thing, but in the first stuff with Renee, when she's like basically talking about what's going on, and she's in sneaking like a clone of Shavod's phone while she's on TV in a talk show in Gotham, and I just like that Mayor Nakano's there because I like it's a small thing. He's not been around as much since this last year or so. But I do appreciate them. So, yeah, we've got an established thing right now. This is the mayor. He's been the mayor of Gotham for like 3 years now. In real time, anyway. I don't know how long it's been in universe, but...
and 4 days. A lot has happened in Gotham.
Hey, with the amount of shit these superheroes have to go through, like, stuff has to happen that frequently. I think of all the things that Batman has done in his career. Like, he had to fight a different supervillain like every day of the week for most of his life, for everything to have happened. And that's even just counting from post-crisis, never mind. Like, yeah,
never mind the stuff beforehand.
Yeah, all the shit for decades and decades before that. So no, I appreciate just having that little bit of continuity in there, or that bit of mythology. Yeah, it's a good issue. I think this and the last couple have been really solid. They've not been my favorite part of the run, I don't think, just because inherently comic books, like, a lot of writers like to do this where they'll get to an issue, an arc, where it's kind of in the character's head, and it's a great excuse for the artist to get to do wild things that aren't actually happening, and it's because, everything's symbolic, everything's about examining who the character is. And I think I've seen enough of these types of stories in comic books at this point that I'm not like super pumped by them. Like, I think I've seen enough of them where I can see when one's good, and this one is good, and it's fitting into the overall narrative to the story. But it made me more excited for what's coming next, and it made me think, oh, this part was great on its own, kind of thing.
Yeah, and we're ending the final act of Ram V's, of it, because he structured it like an opera, right? So now we're heading towards the finale of everything. All the pieces are in place, and that's pretty exciting. I also want to point out that the characters that right before all the Dynamite stuff happened with that big, evil Batman. Those three characters are the three from I think it was the annual that took place in the past in Old Gotham, like in the colonial days.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I'm wondering what that's about. They like, again, it's not an accident that they named it, because I just remember the name Wainwright and Pierce. Those are the two that stood out. And because he says his name is Brutus Wainwright and Aldrich Pierce. And so I'm wondering if that's the reality engine as well at play. So it's kind of pointing to the fact that there's always these types of characters, and Bruce is, just one of them. It's the one that stands up, regardless of the Bat or whoever. So I'm curious to see if Ramvy's going to follow up on those.
It could just be an indication that because he was around the reality engine in Gotham, that some of its history's kind of like,
leached to him.
Yeah, just kind of like attached to him, and he's seen like some glimpses or interpretations of it in his own psyche.
Yeah, because he's not seeing them in Old Gotham. He's seeing them in this Gotham that never was.
Yeah,
where he's taking complete control. He's the full authoritarian version of Batman. So I thought that was curious to see. So maybe that type of stuff, because they thwarted the Orgums before in that annual.
Yeah, and it's one of them that has the dynamite as well, so it sort of shows how Batman is different from these past versions that might have been trying to resist. Yeah, that's a good catch. I would never have in a million years noticed that. So I mean, I did notice the name Brutus Wainwright did stick out to me, but not because I remembered it, just because it sounds like a different version of Bruce Wayne.
Yeah. It's a bit over,
Brutus the Batman Wainwright.
Yeah. He still has the giant scissors, but they're batarangs. Anyway.
I'm trying to think of a Batman version of strutting and cutting, and I just can't think of one, so we'll move on. Solid issue. I think it wraps up this arc quite well. I have enjoyed it, but I am definitely excited to be back in Gotham and seeing how Batman actually takes back the city and how he, goes against the big bad, as it were. So, fun time. And as we mentioned, the art from Federici is beautiful. The art from Raphael is solid. It's really good. and the two styles obviously serve a purpose to separate the two different things that are happening. But the Federici stuff just really sticks out as being super pretty to look at. So, all right, Matt, what are you giving Detective Comics?
I'm going to give that an 8.5.
Yeah. Also, I'm just assuming you didn't read the backup.
No, I did read the backup.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, I was going to rate just the main story since you were there, because it'll be quick to go over.
Yeah. I'll give it a solid 8, but if you want to talk about the backup for a minute.
Yeah. So the backup is the main character. Her name's Selma. That she claimed at the end of the last one that she was Dr. Hurt. And this whole escapade, this whole story comes around the fact that what Dr. Hurt's always trying to do is make versions of himself to populate the different realities, right? And so what he'll do is he'll put these people through trauma and then make them believe that they're Dr. Hurt. And then that gives him more control over, whatever reality they're in. And in fact, he reveals that this castle that they're in is as a sentient reality that he is fully taken over. It's a pocket sentient dimension, and that he uses it for all of his experiments. And he says this is always what happens at these. It's always the ones where that you can't destroy the ego. The ones that believe that they have a say in how things are going to shape out. So as she has the gun on Dr. Hurt, all of these like shadowy Dr. Hurts pop up and claim, that no, they're Dr. Hurt, and that ends up breaking that reality. She falls through, and then Hurt takes full control of the situation. And as he's talking to the last guy standing, the bald guy who was, pushing all of this, that led them to this house, this mansion, he starts asking him, why do I want to make so many? And he goes, oh, it's because you're evil. And he explains that he's anti-life, right? He's the anti-everything that's good and decent. And he stands for everything that's debauched and painful and sick. And at the end of the day, because of that, he has to destroy himself. So all of these experiments are him creating versions to destroy so he can become the ultimate adversary. And when he applauds him for figuring all this out, he goes, but you don't get it, but you will. And it's time to wake up. And the guy wakes up in like this military, like experimental room where he's on a bed, like a surgical bed, and he has all these wires hooked to him. He's strapped to a table, and they said that they had just got done running the simulation in the isolation chamber. And he starts freaking out. It almost becomes like a Twilight Zone ending where they asked him who was the doctor that was in charge of all of this. And he says, the guy goes, calm down. And he goes, what's his name? And it ends with the smile of Dr. Hurt. And this is all done with Jorge Fornes art, so it looks great. And it's Stan Waters writing, so it kind of gets a little like I feel like three issues here was a little bit much to tell this kind of story, but to kind of establish Hurt as kind of this threat that's ever present in Batman, right? Because he's almost shapeless and he can take any form because he represents all that Batman fights against. And that he'll, as long as there's people out there for him to infect their minds, he'll be there. So it was okay. I'm glad it's over though, because again, trying to figure out where we left off was another thing, because the stories don't really make a big impression, and I'm sure it'll read great as all one unit when they throw it in the back of the collection.
Yeah, so, I looked at the first page and I'm like, wait, I feel like this is like not the first part of a story, and I don't think I read the last one. Yep. But yeah, but the Fornes art looks fantastic. But once they started getting to sentient pocket dimensions, I was like, okay, this is some Doom Patrol stuff, and this is not Doom Patrol. So what are we doing? But I feel like because Dan Waters and Ram V work so close together, I do wonder if we're setting up for more Dr. Hurt stuff from Ram V. It wouldn't surprise me, especially since obviously he's been brought up in the main story, even if it's not necessarily been
right, him in person.
Yeah,
right?
Like so, the idea of him has been brought up, so it makes sense that this is building to something.